The Pilgrim and the Nun is a modern conversation about life's spiritual journeys. Life is a pilgrimage, a long journey to foreign places within ourselves. As part of this adventure, we will encounter others and hopefully contribute to their happiness and well-being. In order to do that successfully, we should constantly seek new or expanded perspectives about ourselves, others, nature, or a higher good. Through this experience, we strive to emerge as better human beings. A pilgrim cannot do without the help of a guide, someone who will encourage, cajole, speak sweetly, and educate along the journey. The Pilgrim and the Nun is a modern conversation about life's spiritual journeys. Modern life can be complex and complicated. It's a juggling act on a journey in which we constantly discover things about ourselves and encounter others. Applying ancient wisdom to real life may seem irrelevant or impossible. However, time-tested methods and traditions are still relevant and valuable today. Knowing how to use them in modern life will free you and others. The Nun and the Pilgrim is a modern conversation about life's spiritual journeys. Welcome to the Pilgrim and the Nun. Today I'd like to introduce you to the funkiest, most rock and roll German nun I've ever met in my life, Venerable Sunam.
And Hanli van Wyk, the most powerful woman I met ever in my life.
So Venerable Sunam, I have been wondering about your journey to becoming a nun. Tell me more about how that happened.
Oh, that's a very funny question because, to be honest, I have never thought of myself 40 years in my life that I become a nun. I was a rock and roll person, so I really enjoyed my life. I had a career. I still have a career. I love sports. I love riding a motorbike. And I have done that very extensively in my past life. Then there was a point in my life where I noticed chasing my own happiness didn't ever make me happy. And when I met the Buddhist teachings, my life changed very slowly. Suddenly, I started helping others. Suddenly, with doing that over years, I noticed that that is what makes me happy deep, deep in my heart. And then there was a point where I decided I want to really dedicate my whole life, all my time, all my effort into practicing the Buddhist teachings and also spreading it to other people so that they can have the same benefit I had. I'm a totally happy person now, and I really would like to share that with other people because it changed my life in 100%.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. I'm sure a lot of people have misconceptions about nuns. Do you have a couple of misconceptions you wanted to straighten out?
That we are these holy persons with glowing, shining. Oh, I had two of the shining halos around me, but I never ever like that. And it's very easy to fall into that trap yourself if you are a nun. Oh, I need to be very holy and very soft. But that might not be the best for other people if you are always holy. And the best, I think, it's the best if you really share how you also struggle, how you practice to become a better person, to change the world around you. And I think this honesty is so important, and not being this soft voice speaking. Maybe that's because that's not my personality.
Exactly. So you don't have to change your personality.
No, you don't have to. No.
Yeah. And my last question is, sorry, Karen?
Please go ahead.
So my last question is, I'm curious about the choice of lineage that you made. Is there a particular reason why you chose this lineage?
I chose this lineage because I'm a scientific person, and this lineage is, I think, especially for us Westerners, very, very approachable, because they are so logic. You can get for everything a logic reason why to do it. It's not this, you do it because it's mentioned in the scripture or because the Buddha said you have to do it. Everything has a clear logic, which comes to my scientific mind very, very natural. That's why I'm really attracted to it, and I checked it out and I simply noticed that's what I can relate to.
Very interesting. Excellent. So that was an interesting little introduction to Venerable Sunam.
And now to you, Hanli. You are the pilgrim. You are the nomad. You had, I don't know, in how many countries have you lived and worked?
Yes, I've worked and lived on 4 continents. So I grew up in South Africa. I then spent time in Europe and the UK. I went back to South Africa and I traveled around there a lot. Eventually I found my way to Asia, which I love. I lived in Singapore for a while. I then moved back to the UK, and then eventually I found myself in America, which is where I am now. So I come from a very small town in South Africa, a coal mining town in which Winston Churchill hid in the mines of the town during what we call the Boer War, which was a big war against the British occupation. And so I grew up with that whole feeling about how important it is to be patriotic and to have a strong culture and all those things. But from the beginning, I just was always quite, they call it itchy feet. I always had itchy feet. Always wanted to go explore and find out more about things. And so when I went to university, my method of choosing a university was to pick the one that was furthest away from home. So I just said, which one is the furthest away from home? I'll go to that one. And so there I went. Yeah. And that's kind of where all my journey started. And for me, traveling is like oxygen. It's like breathing. I love to travel. I love to learn about other cultures and people. I love to understand how people approach their lives differently, through the things I've learned or the things I've experienced. And I think the thing that I've learned through my travels is that we have a common humanity. That people are just people. They want the same things in the end of the day. That we really are no different from each other at the end of the day.
Is there any other motivation behind the curiosity?
I don't know if there's an additional motivation. I am naturally very, very curious about things. I like to know how things work. I like to understand what people think. I think most of it is just I'm really, really interested in the world and people. I'm really interested to find out what is it that makes you happy? What is it that makes you tick? What is the things that make you sad or might make you angry? It doesn't really matter what it is. And how can you as a human being, how can we all as human beings find ways within ourselves to be happier, be healthier, be a better version of ourselves all the time. And so part of that curiosity is finding out from other cultures how they do it and how we can borrow from those cultures if it wasn't in our own culture. Or to mix up the whole lot to say, okay, well, this is what we used to do and this is what a different culture does. And maybe if we put that all together, something more interesting will come from that.
Yeah. I find it totally interesting because I think it's the 2 ways you have experienced through your travel, because being curious, trying to find out what makes people happy, how they work over so many different continents and countries. And I approached it for a long time now from the Buddhist standpoint of view. And I think maybe let's go into the topic of today. You have lately committed to be a bodhisattva. Maybe you want to share your experience about it and why you have done it.
Yes, I've been a Buddhist for probably 15 or 20 years. I started exploring in that way because as I'm curious about everything, I was curious about different religions as well. And so I took some time to step away from the religion that I grew up in to explore other religions. And I settled on Buddhism pretty much for the reason I think that you did as well. I found it logical and scientific, and there were good reasons behind things, and you were invited to challenge things in order for you to understand things better. And I found that a very refreshing and novel approach from the way that I grew up in. And so I went along for a few years, and I tried to learn as much as I could. And I started taking my first vows, the very basic vows, and stuck with that. But in the recent years, I realized that in order for me to really make an impact in the world in the way that I would like to, I need to move one step further. And I think the Bodhisattva vows is definitely a one step further vow, or vows, because there are many of them.
Yeah, I have two questions here. How would you define a bodhisattva in modern words? Because it's really an expression, it's a Sanskrit word. So what would be your expression for your everyday life, how you relate to it in English words?
I think for me, a bodhisattva is really just about, how to be a cool person, like how to be a cool person, how not to be an asshole. For me, it's about committing yourself to a way of being that is about bringing joy and happiness and peace of mind to other people. You commit your entire way of being to that. And the vows are all about that for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a different definition.
I just want first to give the definition which are in the ancient books, and there the definition is that you want to become enlightened, to become the superhero, that you are able to be of true help for others. And I find that a very interesting concept. I think human nature is first you want to take care of yourself. And that's how you start off in your spiritual journey. Most of the time you want to make yourself happy and a better person. And then you discover that really what makes you happy is helping other people. And then you expand your compassion and your love, that you really want others to be able to do that as well. But for this, you have to first change yourself into a role model that you even can help other people. Because what we are talking here is not, this old saying, if you give a person a fish, he might not be hungry for an hour. If you teach them fishing, you have made the whole difference in their life. And I think that is what a real bodhisattva wants to give, to be able to, that other people also become a happy person and reach the ultimate goal, become this perfect being with no anger, no hatred, no jealousy, just being love and compassion.
And I'm sure as you say that, a lot of people are going to go, what? That's not even possible. But I can promise you, I have seen so many little changes over time practicing this, where I'm an incredibly impatient person. And I've just seen over the last 10 years how I've become more and more patient every year. It's, if you keep on committing yourself to those kinds of things, it is possible. But it does take dedication and motivation.
I think it boils down to the motivation, because that's the core of the definition. And I love to using these words like role model or superhero. Why are we all running into this superhero, me especially in the superwomen movies? Because deep down in our heart we are identifying with this deep wish to save a whole world. And I think that's why they are so successful, because it's resonating with this deep wish in us. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But the other part of that also is practice. You really have to, and I specialize in habits, like how do you create a habit over time? And part of this is also creating that habit, practicing it over and over again until you become much more skilled at it. It becomes a way of being without you ever having to think about it again. So I think, yes, the motivation is very important, but the application and practice of it is equally important.
Without doing it in your daily life, it will not change anything. Exactly. It will not change myself, and it will not change anybody else if I'm not changing myself and be the role model. And that's why also in the old scriptures, they are there is so often the word warrior, and it's not the warrior in the sense of that you are fighting with other people. It's just, if you fail again, if you get angry, if you get jealous, if you take something for yourself and don't give it to others, you realize, oops, that's not the person I want to be. It's like, you are somehow defeated, and then that's where the warrior come in. You stand up and you try it again. And I think that's the most important part of the journey, that we share with each other how we can overcome these moments to get up and just try it again. I think that's the part of
and I think and one of the things that really helped me there was something called the 6 practices, or the 6 perfections, which I think are like really foundational ways for you to, it's such an easy concept to go to, these 6 perfections or these 6 practices. And so I'll go through them, and maybe you can explain a little bit about each of them. So the 6 of them are the practice of generosity, of living an ethical or a moral way of life, to not get angry, to be patient, to be joyful in the efforts that you, the things that you do, the efforts that you make every day in your work life or in your home life. Being able to focus and concentrate and meditate, which is very important. It's a very specific tool or method to use. And then the wisdom of having the right way of looking at something. So maybe you can explain to us a little bit about each concept, starting with generosity. So what do you think is important about the concept, and why do you think we have to be generous?
All 6 of them are just a way for us to become that person. And in general, there are 2 concepts out there. One say, oh, you develop the first one and then you develop the second one. And then there is another one which say you need to develop all 6 at the same time, because they support each other. And in my experience, it is the second way, because you cannot become perfect in being generous if you don't have morality, wisdom, patience. Everything goes into it that you are really able to be generous. And to be generous is simply give with a happy heart what you can give. It's not about how much you give. If we're talking about giving money, for example, it's not about that you give so much money that you don't have anything to live on. Give how much you can give happily and easily, and give it with the right motivation, because you really want to help the other person. And everything is like a muscle you develop. I started out with giving a bigger tip if you are in a restaurant. So sometimes, okay, the waiter might not be the nicest one and might not be the perfect one, but just give a generous tip. He is working in a restaurant. That's really a hard job, and it's some kind of appreciation of their work, of their lifetime they put in. Then you can also give time, which is so important, that you give time to people who are lonely, who just need somebody to talk, who oftentimes a request of a friend is a request for time. And the third way of giving is really sharing with them your wisdom. Like, share with them your struggle. Oh, I always have struggled to give tips to unfriendly waiters. We have a lot of them here in Munich. And it's really, how do you put this in a joyful, that's one of the other perfection, into a joyful practice that you are able. That's why it comes down to this small thing. It's not about giving $1 million to a charity. It's about, are you able to give with a joyful heart to an unfriendly waiter a good tip? Because they are not paid well, they work really hard. Are you able to be generous at that point?
When your inclination is maybe not to be, right?
If give me $5 back instead of. Yeah.
All right. So the second one is moral discipline, they call it, like an ethical way of life, right?
Yeah.
Why is that so important? Because I would suspect some people might feel that a little bit, I don't know, like an unfriendly thing. Like, why must I have moral discipline?
Okay, let me put it the other way around, because that was my second question when you explained about taking the Bodhisattva vows. So you also said you have been drawn to this particular lineage of Buddhism because it's so scientific, it explains everything. Why are you then committing to vows, which is simply a rule set of behaviors? I would give this question back, because that is for us scientific persons really a big, big step we are taking, to commit to a rule set.
Sure, but science is full of rule sets, right? So part of what makes science work is because you follow some of its rules, right? Yeah. If you're doing research, there are certain rules that you follow to make the research work, to make it really great. Yeah. Or, whatever it is you're doing in science. It just happens to be where I apply my scientific life. And I think in some ways it's, for me, the same with your spiritual life. There are a set of rules that just make it work better because it's been tested over time. Thousands, hundreds, millions of people have done it and have noticed something about it and said, hey, I've done this 500 times and I can tell you that something has changed. Let me go do this scientifically and have someone else do the same thing and see if it changes for them. So even though I'm a rule breaker, a lot of the time, I do believe that rules are really important to make your life work properly. And so I think part of that for me is why I'm happy to commit to it, because I really believe that it'll make a difference. Maybe the rule breaking comes when I think it's a stupid rule and it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, I was thinking the same way, because it is a scientific philosophy and the rules are clearly defined. All the rules you are committing to are rules we know which help you to plant better karma. So that's why over the time you notice, oh, I'm a much happier person, my world changes to a much better world, because these rules give you the frame set that you are planting good seeds, good karma, and avoiding the bad karma. And that's why over time your general karma back goes towards the good one. And then, as I totally agree, and then suddenly our brains can say, oh, it makes totally sense. And having this rule set helps me in everyday life to be reminded of it simply.
Yeah. And I also think that the nice thing about it is try it for yourself. Go do it and see what kind of result you have, because it's there for you to test as well. So no one is imposing it upon you. They are inviting you to commit to doing it, to test it for yourself.
Yeah.
All right. The next one I think was patience. I'll just leave that one to you.
Can we put that in a separate podcast talking about patience?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think especially for the two of us, that's one of the big challenges we have to practice. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I also love the definition of patience, not getting angry when the time has come. And sometimes when you catch yourself and you make it happen that you are not getting angry, it's just such an incredible experience. And then you realize how you damage yourself by being angry. Yeah.
And I think this one is if this is something that someone struggles with, what has helped me was to say, you can feel it happening. And in the beginning, it just comes out, you just, the first thing to do is just let it, you can feel it happening, just don't, keep quiet, take a minute, step away, go do something, get a cup of coffee, just practice that for a while. Then after a while, you can begin to feel it and you can go, oh, I see what's happening. And then you can just say, okay, it's fine. I know how this goes. I know how this works. So over time, you can sort of pull it back almost, the impatience. And it's really, for me, that's kind of been helpful. Not to say don't be impatient, because it's just not possible, because it just arises sometimes. But it's about managing the expression of it. And I think it's the same with anger. Manage the expression of it and slowly begin to manage it from outside to inside.
Yeah. Joyful effort. That's my favorite one, because being happy when you do good things, it just has so much fun. And I think that's also the topic of today, how to be cool. And to be cool is having fun when you do good things. When you give your colleague this cup of coffee, when you share the apples, when you just get your anger under control for 10 seconds and then be happy about it, that you have been able to put your own happiness to the side and make somebody else happy. That's for me the core. Yeah.
Someone said to me something a couple of weeks ago, is that your happiness is, how to go? Your happiness is your responsibility, and being unhappy is your fault. So it really is for you to decide to be a certain way. And again, it's not going to happen overnight. It takes practice, but you literally can decide. I've done this before meetings, because sometimes we have to go into meetings with people who are just really difficult, or have no energy, or just are not pleasant to be with. And so deciding before a meeting, or deciding before an interaction to be a certain way, really does make an enormous difference. I think. So the next thing is concentration, meditation, focus. And you and I have just finished a whole series on how to meditate, right? In a chaotic world, how to create a quiet mind. If anyone wants to go check that out, that'll be on YouTube. And so why would you say that is so important?
You have to understand what's going on in your mind. Otherwise, you are not able to change yourself. Otherwise, the voices in your mind take over, have control over what you think anyway, and what you do and what you say. And you have to be able to be aware what's going on in your mind. Otherwise, you will not change, in my eyes. Otherwise, all the efforts you put in will not be successful, because you cannot change it from the root.
And this comes back to what you said earlier about practicing them all at the same time. If I understood that correctly, to say this is one of the things that makes it so possible for you to do many of the others. And without this ability to really know your mind and control your mind and set up the practice to do that over and over again, makes some of the others much harder to do in real life.
And only if you are able to concentrate and to concentrate and to meditate, then I think you are able to really develop wisdom. And wisdom here is, for me, the definition that you understand that everything is coming from your past actions. And that you need to, it does not mean that everything is empty and everything is black and nothing matters. It's the opposite, the other side of the coin, of that everything is empty, is that you need to plant simply the right seeds, that you experience a different life, that you change how you behave to other people, that you change which people you meet, if they are nice and friendly to you or not. And only with this wisdom you can develop yourself to this incredible being who is free of any bad feelings, no anger, no hatred, no jealousy, who has only love and compassion in their heart and wants to help other people to overcome their problems as well and to get to that point.
And it almost sounds like these last two are like really critical. I don't know, is that your interpretation as well?
I think they are as well somehow the core, because when you get these, if you understand that everything is coming from how you have acted in the past, that good deeds bring pleasant results and bad deeds bring unpleasant results, then you want to do the good deeds. And all the practices we are talking about, the 6 perfections, the vows you have committed to, they are the framework which give us for everyday life the practical advice how we can do that, how we can develop that, how we can develop compassion and love for everybody. Like, put yourself in the shoes of others. Imagine everybody is your mother and you want to repay kindnesses. There are so many practices out there which help us to develop this love and compassion for everybody. So that's the goal. And then we have a lot of things in our tool set how to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, this is really all about it's about self-leadership, right? It's about knowing how I work and how I can fix my particular bits that get in my own way of my own happiness. But at the same time, contributing this to others, or practicing this on others and for others, so that they can also reap the benefits of that. So it's leading myself and leading others in that way.
And that leads me to something which I struggled in the beginning a lot, is that sounds so arrogant to me. I become this enlightened being and then I'm able to help all these suffering beings. Yeah, that's how normal, that's how it's written in the Buddhist text. And to be honest, I really had a problem with it. It was this, we do it all together, or I make sure that everybody else is doing it before me. And there is also, I found it so interesting when I then found it in the ancient text that this is a common problem. I'm not the first one who had this problem. And I love if there are things which are bothering you for a long time, and then you find the solution in the ancient text, which built also the faith in me that all these texts simply are correct and just follow them. So it is described as the way of the shepherd, the ferryman, and the king, which nowadays we would call the role model. So the way of the shepherd is very nice. So they say, you are the shepherd and you make sure all your sheep get enlightenment before you do. The ferryman says, we are all in the same boat and we are all going to enlightenment at the same time. And the king or the role model does it first, and then based on his or her experience, he or she is able to share the way with the others so that they can benefit of how have you done it, where have you struggled, how have you overcome all your struggles and your barriers and your obstacles. So that's why in Buddhism it's a clear a way of the king or the role model, because only if you excel, you yourself have experienced and have practiced, and you have yourself turned into this perfect being, then you are able to share with the others how to do it. If you are sitting all in the same boat, yes, that's nice, but where does this boat go if nobody knows where the goal is or how to get there? If nobody has the GPS in the boat, it will go nowhere.
Down the waterfall.
Down the waterfall, hopefully not. That's not where we want to go.
As you're speaking now, it makes me think of, there's a concept called servant leadership, where it is, I'm leading, but I'm serving at the same time through leading, and in an empathetic way, in a way that is genuine, in a way that I have also discovered for myself. And so it's a connected way of leading, I think, rather than, as you say, we're in it together, or I'm leading you in a way that's more corralling you, rather than sharing with you those experiences.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that each of us and each of you who are listening are going to have that experience. And I hope that you've learned something fun and interesting today that will make you more curious, or lead you to want to explore a little bit more. I don't know, Sunam, is there somewhere where we can send people that they might be able to read a bit more or learn a bit more about some of these concepts or principles?
There is a course from the Asian Classic Institute. It's ACI Course 7, the Vows of a Bodhisattva. It's very beautiful because there also the rules that you commit to when you decide to become a Bodhisattva is explained, and it's really explained for our modern life, how you apply it in your modern life. It's very, very beautiful, and also the whole concept about being a bodhisattva, which motivation, how you develop this motivation, and then how you go the extra mile from wishing to be that person into really being that person and really help other persons. Because I think that's the big thing. It's so easy to say, oh, I want to help every living being. I want that nobody is hungry in this world. I want that nobody is sick in this world. That's nice. But these are, it's talking, and it helps to develop this compassion. But at one point in your life, you have to start giving. And as Shantideva put it, he has this beautiful concepts of compassion and love for other people. It's in very beautiful poetry. And then he ends his verse by, oh, and by the way, you start by giving apples to other people. So please give an apple today to somebody else with compassion in your heart, that they never have to go to the doctor again.
Absolutely, that would be a win. Fantastic. So, thank you very much for your time. I hope you all enjoyed it. See you soon.
Thank you, Hanli. I loved it. See you soon. Bye bye.